Greetings adventurers, my name is Kramer, and today I would like to go over my Ranger kit because it has gone through several evolutions on the channel, and I always like to showcase what it is that I'm doing so that you can learn from it. So here are some of the things that I love, which you might end up loving too, and you might want to emulate or steal for your own kit, and some of the things that I would like to change. I don't really want to say dislike because I like my gear, but there are definitely some things I'd like to change, which might be things that you would like to change too, problems you've encountered, or things that you haven't considered. Firstly, I love my Ranger glove. I based this off of Aragorn's glove because he has a fingerless leather glove in Peter Jackson's adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. I really like the look. And it's actually very, very practical. It's very comfortable, and being able to still have the dexterity of my fingers without having to take the glove off every time, very, very good. And it tells the story of someone who needs something to protect their hand, to keep them warm, keep them safe from scratches and cuts, but also does a lot of work with his hands. I made this glove myself. There's no tutorial on it because what I did was just take a whole bunch of scraps of leather that I happen to have and then just wrap them around my hand until I had a rough glove shape. And then I just memorized how those pieces joined together. I punched holes and then I stitched them. And I just essentially stitched it around my hand. I'd take it off if I needed to. And then I'd go back and forth, testing to make sure it fit, taking it off, stitching it, putting it back on, where's the next piece that needs to go on, find it, punch it, stitch it. And that's how I made this glove. It's very, very easy. And in addition to being super practical and super comfortable, this has actually protected me while I've been doing stuff. It keeps my hand from hurting too much if I'm doing sword work or something like that. It's very practical and it just brings the whole look together. I also love my belt pouch. This is a kidney style belt pouch. It's very historically accurate. It's around the 1300s, 1400s, very medieval looking pouch. And this is a historically accurate way that you would be carrying your dagger or your long knife. And this is a fake steel armory Bollock dagger. I got it because I liked the way it looked and it was the closest thing I could find in LARP form to dirk. I love this pouch because it's soft, so it doesn't take up a lot of space horizontally, but it's still very wide, so there's a lot of carrying space. And it's slightly anachronistic because there's actually two D-rings on the back that you can use to attach any number of things. Right here, I just have this extra little carrying case, which is perfect if you are going to be carrying a pipe or something like that. That is a very good place to keep that. And having those two little extra D-rings on the bottom, very, very practical. And a pouch this size really is enough to carry all of my daily things I would need as an adventurer, like fire kit, keys, compass, stuff like that. I love this tunic. This is a Berg Schneider tunic. This is the Equine tunic in red, and it's made out of a very comfortable canvas. It's not too thin and it's not too thick either, so it's very comfortable to move around in. I feel like I can get a good range of motion, but it's thick enough that I'm also not super worried about ripping it or scuffing it or tearing it while I'm an adventurer. It just has a very comfortable weight to it, and it's rather warm too in cold conditions. But my favorite part about it is actually this. It has a slight collar around the edge of it here. It doesn't lace up in the front. It's just got this slight collar in the back and here in the front, which gives it just a touch of fantasy flair. And it reminds me a lot of Aragorn's red tunic that he wears after the Battle of the Hornburg and the Two Towers, and red is also Boromir's color. I love this tunic. If I could pick one tunic to just bring with me through a magic portal into an adventuring scenario, it would be this tunic. If you're interested in this particular tunic, there will be a special link in the description, and you can also use code LA10 at Berg Schneider to get 10% off of your purchase if you find a different tunic or item that you like. Over the tunic goes this Gambison, which I also love. A lot of people have asked me where they can get this. It is custom made for me. It was made by a family member, so unfortunately it's not available for you to purchase, but there are elements about it that I really, really like. Some that I don't, which we'll get to in a second, but there are elements about it that I really, really like that you can look for in other styles of Gambison that are commercially available. So to start, it is a two-piece system. So there's the short sleeves that I have on right now that actually lace on up here at the top to the shoulder, so it can go sleeveless, it can have short sleeves, and then there's third sleeves that come up here over the arm that I can attach either with an arming point or a button that come up and cover my forearms. And that amount of versatility allows me to use this Gambison in a lot of different weather scenarios for a lot of different costume looks. And right now I'm really digging the short sleeve look because when I put it on underneath my Ranger tunic, it has that slightly sort of Boromir style vibe to it, and Boromir is one of my favorite characters. Lastly, I really, really love this cloak. This is from Felon Fair. This is their linen cloak variety, and I have confirmed that all of the things that I like about this cloak were design choices that were done on purpose, though I noticed that I liked them before I confirmed that fact, so that was really cool. The first thing is that this hood is designed specifically so that when you are either on camera, whether for video or for taking photos, that the hood actually frames your face very aesthetically. It has that sort of bunch head on the side here without being too round, but you can still see the actor's face. The hood is still deep enough that it can go a little bit further and cover your face if you are in a rangering scenario, but it sits very comfortably right there on the back of the head to give that very aesthetic look. But my favorite thing about this cloak is the way that the back is designed. It actually sits up higher on the neck than a lot of other circular mantle cloaks like this do. And that means that it stays over your shoulders. It stays up over your shoulders. So unless I really tried to throw this back over myself, it's never going to just slip and fall there, resulting in the neckline coming up into your throat and potentially choking you. So this cloak actually, I know I'm the Rowana cloak guy and I love Rowana cloaks, but this cloak actually fixes all of the problems that I have with a mantle cloak very neatly, and it makes it very comfortable to wear. I never have to worry about it coming undone and accidentally choking me. And when the whole thing comes together, it really does have that sort of Athelian Ranger style vibe, which is what I was going for. The one thing I'd say I'm missing is they have sort of a triangular leather gorget that goes down here, so that's something that I would be looking to get in the future to finish off that piece right there. And now on to things that I either don't really like or things that I do like but just wish I could change slightly or plan on upgrading in the future. First one is these vambraces. I do not find vambraces to be particularly comfortable to wear, and that is because a lot of commercially available styles of essentially leather cuffs for your arms aren't designed the way that vambraces actually were if we're talking about medieval plate armor. So the first thing here, I do like that these ones have buckles. I prefer buckles to laces. It makes a lot more sense to me. It's much easier to put on and take off. And it's sort of a neat thing with this particular pair because the leather is sort of interwoven. There's these nice slots for me to stick the ends of the belts into so they're not just dangling around. I do like that. Probably not very good in terms of actual protection though, but lots of like LARP level vambraces are simply too long. Even just filming this one has slipped down my arm and it really impedes my wrist mobility, which is not good. It starts to hurt the back of your hand. I don't like that. I wish that they were pointed so that I could actually tie them to my sleeve on my arming jacket or my Gambison, or even just on my tunic so that they would stay up where they're supposed to, and they're not supposed to be this long. They're not supposed to cover your full forearm. If you look at historically accurate vambraces that go with a full plate of armor, they only go to about here, and that is because your actual wrist needs to be able to move, and that would be protected by your gauntlet. So vambraces, I need ones that are shorter, and I need ones that tie up here by the elbow so that I don't run into this problem. And a general rule of thumb is, because these aren't pointed like they're supposed to be, and they're just sort of strapped to my arm, they want to slide down. A general rule of thumb is, if you have to strap anything to your body so tightly that it hurts you, otherwise the thing is going to fall off, it's probably not designed correctly, and you should probably ditch it, honestly. So it's kind of the Tiffany problem. These aren't historically accurate. I don't particularly enjoy wearing them, but it kind of completes the look, so I feel like compelled to wear them, even though I'm not really the biggest fan of them, and they're not historically accurate to begin with. I feel like I need to wear them because it's what people expect to see. There are things I dislike about this Gambison as well. There's a lot to like about it. I'm not saying it doesn't look good. It has sentimental value for me, and I think it just looks great, which is why I continue to wear it. But my biggest problem with it is that it's actually not, it's not an armor weight of Gambison. It's very, very, very thin. It's probably like an arming jacket sort of thickness, which means that unless I'm actually using it to wear armor on top of, it is functionally worthless as actual armor. It's not going to protect me against anything. That being said, something like this, it looks great, it fits the costume look, but it's just simply too thin to actually be practical. Another thing I would change, unfortunately, is this Ranger tunic. I'm not saying it doesn't look good, I'm not saying I don't love it. It was made for me with love, which I very much appreciate, but there are just some slight issues that I've found with it based on the way that I originally designed it. I wanted it to very much mirror that sort of Athelian Ranger look. That's why it's got this point down here in the center to sort of mirror their battle skirt or monastic scapulet that they wear. The main problem for me here is that lacing this up every time is just, it's so impractical. There's no way for me to do it quickly unless I try to come up with a new system so that I can pull it up over my head. It's very form-fitting, so it's difficult to get off, especially if I'm wearing a Gambison. Lace systems in general really aren't very practical at all, and I don't think they're actually historically accurate either. They look historically accurate because we don't lace things in the modern day, but because it's so impractical, there are very scarce examples of when you would lace something up in the medieval period or the Renaissance or even in the 18th century. But by and large, they had easier ways of closing garments. They had buttons, they had ties. Even a buckle would be more convenient. I don't really think I want to put buckles on this. I mean, the laces just look so Lord of the Rings. But they're very impractical. And for the Athelian Ranger look, I do think it looks pretty good. But I also kind of wish that I had used a slightly thicker leather for the vest section. This was just a leather vest that I actually had lying around and I repurposed it. But if I were to do this again, I'd actually use a slightly heavier weight leather, almost so it's like a very light sort of cuirass or breastplate that just has a tunic like attached underneath it, so then I can like sort of slip into it and maybe buckle it or lace it on the side or something like that. I think that would work a little bit better. That being said, it does look pretty good, doesn't it? Another thing I will be looking to change or upgrade in the future is this sword. I know. I love this sword. I think it's a beautiful sword. But when I go out on either a hiking trip or a camping trip or even just taking things out to film, if I don't need the sword, I do not bring it. It is the first thing that I leave behind, and that is because of the way the scabbard is designed. It hangs essentially horizontally on my body, which makes it very difficult to walk around my house, let alone outside of the woods where you have varied terrain, there's trees everywhere, or the terrain is uneven, so you're having to step over rocks or hills. That sword is just, it's not a great adventuring sword the way that the scabbard is designed. And the handle sort of sticks out really far. It's very, very cumbersome. And I found myself leaning towards wanting to have an arming sword. I really like the Type 14 style sword, so that's what I want to be going with sometime in the future. A Type 14 arming sword seems better to me. And a lot of the Athelian Rangers also have arming swords instead of bastard swords or long swords. As cool as they are, they're not really that great for adventuring. They're just hard to carry around. Now, the final thing that I would want to change or upgrade in the future is actually these boots. I made these myself. I'm very proud of them, but there are some very simple design flaws that I would do differently next time, that I will do differently next time when I finally get around to making another pair. The nice thing about boots like this when you make them is they're very easy to take apart and put back together again, which makes repairs easy and makes making adjustments easy if there's something that you don't like. So the first thing is that, look at how long these laces are. This is just absolutely ridiculous. I wouldn't do it this way in the future. It looks cool. They lace all the way up my leg. Seems very rangery, but it's just kind of a pain. It's not the end of the world, but if there's another way, I'd want to do it that way. And the soles. The soles are the biggest problem for me for a number of reasons. The first one is I wish I had done the flesh side of the leather out instead of the skin side. The skin side is very, very smooth. It's starting to wear and rough up a little bit because I've had these for a little over a year now, I think. But there's pretty much no traction, like dangerously little traction with these. Even just a small amount of dew on wet grass is a hazard if you're walking down the hill because there's just nothing there to help you. At the same time, I also wish I had had the flesh side on the inside of the sole touching my foot rather than the skin side of the leather touching my foot because my feet sort of slip around on the inside of the shoe too. So it's like slippery on the outside and slippery on the inside. I like these shoes, they're very comfortable. At the same time, I could design them so that they were not so dangerous to wear. And another thing about the soles is I made them too thick. So there's one layer of leather on the outside, which has been glued and stitched to the front here. And then there's the thin layer of leather that the actual whole part of the boot is made out of on the bottom. And then on the inside, there's another leather cut out. So there's essentially 2 layers of thick leather and 1 layer of very thin leather. And that means that the soles are not as flexible as they should be. They're too stiff to be barefoot shoes, so I can't like flex my foot in order to use my toes to grab onto stuff, and they're too thin to actually be like protective trekking boots. I tried to like marry the two and like have the best of both worlds, and I ended up with something that was just not good at anything. So I would change the way that I design my soles in the future. Having this style of lace system where the laces go all the way down the leg and then tie around the ankle, it's very secure, but it's very similar to the van braces. I'm having to tie them very tightly in order to keep them from falling down down my leg, meaning that it can hurt my legs if I tie them too tightly. So I have to wear my Winnengas underneath my boot in order to keep the cords from cutting into my blood circulation. So by virtue of having to have not just the boot, but also the Winnengas too, it's inherently impractical because I have to have multiple things in order to make these work as good as they look. So that's what I love about my kit and what I would change. If a magical portal appeared that was gonna transport me to an adventuring scenario, those are the things that I would keep and those are the things that I would start to worry about. And hello? Well, I'm gonna go explore this. I will see you very soon, and in the meantime, I'd like to wish you good luck on your adventures.